If you're over 60 and you enjoy eggs in the morning, scrambled, boiled, or sunny side up, there's something you need to hear today. And I'm saying this not to scare you, but because I've seen what happens when we're not told the full story. You've probably heard that eggs are one of nature's perfect foods, full of protein, B vitamins, choline for your brain, lutein for your eyes. What could go wrong? Well, what if I told you it's not the egg that's the problem, it's how you're eating it? Over the last 30 years as a brain doctor, I've to try in stroke survivors, memory patients, and even those who collapsed with no warning, all of whom thought they were eating healthy. But here's what most people never learn. Something as innocent as how you store, cook, or even crack an egg can quietly raise your risk for brain inflammation, heart disease, and even early memory decline. Yes, really. Recent studies show that a single mistake with eggs can clog your arteries by over 30%, spike your cholesterol in less than an hour, and, this one shocked even me, increase stroke risk by 40% or more, especially in adults over 60. And the most disturbing part? Nearly every senior I meet is making at least 3 of these dangerous egg mistakes every week, without even realizing it. I'm going to walk you through the 7 biggest egg mistakes I see in my clinic, including one that has been linked to a 51% higher risk of sudden death in older adults. Yes, you heard that right, sudden death. This isn't fear-mongering. This is real science buried in studies few doctors ever mention, and most food companies would rather ignore. But don't worry, you don't have to give up eggs. In fact, by the end of this video, I'll show you the safest, most nutritious way to prepare eggs used by some of the longest living people on Earth that protects your heart and fuels your brain. So before you crack that next egg, watch this first, because what you don't know could change the course of your health. Now let's begin with the one cooking mistake that's quietly poisoning breakfasts all across America. Number 1, the cooking mistake that can poison your food and air. Let me start with the one mistake that nearly every kitchen makes. And it's not about the egg itself, it's the pan, specifically non-stick pans that are overheated. You know the ones, easy to clean, eggs slide right off. But when you crank the heat too high, and most people do, especially when rushing breakfast, they can release toxic fumes that are far more dangerous than you think. The very coatings that make these pans so convenient, things like PFOA and PTFE, become unstable at high heat. And here's the shocking part. Tests show that most non-stick pans exceed the danger zone in under 2 minutes on high heat. Once the surface temperature hits around 500 degrees Fahrenheit, it starts releasing fumes that can damage the liver, lungs, thyroid, and even your brain over time. You may have heard about this in pet warnings. Yes, those fumes can kill pet birds in minutes. But what are they doing to the rest of us, especially if you cook eggs this way daily? A University of California study followed over 2,000 adults who regularly used overheated non-stick pans. Those with the highest exposure had 40% more of a chemical called PFOA in their blood. And PFOA has been linked to thyroid disease, high cholesterol, brain fog, and even a 50% higher risk of kidney and testicular cancers over 10 years. Now here's where it gets worse. Eggs are particularly vulnerable to this type of damage. When you cook them on overheated non-stick surfaces, they absorb some of these chemical compounds, especially when the coating is old or scratched. A food safety lab analysis found that eggs cooked on damaged non-stick pans had 15 times more toxic residues than those cooked on ceramic or cast iron. And many people, to keep their eggs from sticking, do the worst thing possible. They heat the pan before adding oil or butter. This raises the surface temperature dramatically, while the pan still looks cool to the eye. So what's the solution? First, never use high heat with non-stick pans, medium or low only. If your pan is scratched, chipped, or discolored, throw it away immediately. It's not worth the risk. Better yet, switch to ceramic, stainless steel, or well-seasoned cast iron, which don't release fumes and are far more durable. And here's a chef's secret that's also safer. Start with a cold pan. Add your butter or oil, then your eggs, and gently raise the heat. This keeps your food below the 400-degree mark preserves the nutrients, and protects your health. Because you might not smell it, you might not taste it, but every time that pan smokes, your brain and body are breathing in more than just breakfast. And if that sounds alarming, just wait until you find out how you've probably been cracking your eggs wrong your entire life and how it might be dragging dangerous bacteria right into your food. Number 2, the bacteria highway in your bowl. What's the first thing most people do when they're making eggs? They crack the shell on the side of the mixing bowl or frying pan. It's fast, it's familiar, and it's quietly dangerous. Let me explain. Eggshells may look clean, but they are not sterile. The surface of a typical eggshell contains between 10,000 to 100,000 bacteria, including strains of E. coli and Salmonella. These bacteria come from the hen's environment and what's on her feathers, what's in the nest, and what's in the air of the processing facility. Now, when you crack an egg on the edge of a bowl, you're doing two things at once. First, you're creating multiple fracture lines that splinter the shell, sending tiny shards into your food. You may not see them, but they're there. Second, and more dangerously, you're dragging the contaminated outer shell across the egg white and yolk as it opens. It's like taking your breakfast and wiping it across a dirty cutting board. The sharp edge of the bowl acts like a hinge, scraping bacteria inside right into the egg. And the numbers back this up. A study from the Institute of Food Technologists used high-speed video to analyze over 1,000 egg cracking techniques. Eggs cracked on bowl edges produced 3.5 times more shell fragments and had nearly 4 times the bacterial transfer rate compared to eggs cracked on flat surfaces like a countertop. Even more worrying, some of those shell fragments, especially the small sharp ones, don't just make your eggs unpleasant to eat. If swallowed, they can cause microscopic tears in your digestive tract, which increases the risk of bacterial entry into the bloodstream, something far more dangerous for older adults with weaker immune function. So what should you do instead? Always crack your eggs on a flat, clean surface, like your kitchen counter. This creates one clean break and significantly reduces shell debris. Then open the egg carefully over a small bowl or plate and inspect it for any fragments before using it in your recipe or pan. Professional chefs use this method for 2 reasons. It's safer, and it gives them control. Many also crack the egg into a separate bowl first to make sure it's fresh and clean before adding it to other ingredients. If you're handling multiple eggs, remember to wash your hands immediately after touching the shells, and never reuse a bowl that has had raw shell contact without washing it first. This small change might seem trivial, but when you consider how many eggs you crack over a lifetime, it adds up to a significant difference in food safety. Now, if you think how you crack your eggs is important, wait until you find out where you're storing them, maybe quietly shortening their life and possibly affecting yours. Number 3, the dangerous place. Most people store their eggs. If you open your refrigerator right now, chances are your eggs are sitting right in the door. After all, that's where the little egg holders are built in, right? Well, here's something most people don't realize. The refrigerator door is the worst place to store eggs, especially if you're over 60 and more vulnerable to foodborne illness. Let's talk about what's going on behind that door. Every time you open your fridge, warm air rushes in. And where does it hit first? The items are stored in the door. Unlike the back of the fridge, which stays at a stable, safe temperature, the door experiences constant temperature swings, sometimes up to 15 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the day. Now, why does that matter? Eggs are highly sensitive to temperature changes. The shell may seem solid, but it's porous, with over 17,000 tiny openings. When temperatures fluctuate, moisture condenses inside the shell, creating the perfect breeding ground for bacteria, especially Salmonella. A study in the Journal of Food Protection tracked over 1,200 eggs stored in different parts of a fridge. Eggs kept in the door not only spoiled 40% faster, but also had a 25% higher rate of bacterial contamination when artificially exposed to pathogens. And the danger isn't just food poisoning. For seniors, bacteria from spoiled eggs can lead to serious infections, long recovery times, and in some cases, even neurological complications due to inflammatory responses triggered by the gut. But that's not all. Those constant temperature swings also affect egg quality. The whites become watery, the yolks lose firmness, and the protein structure starts to break down, meaning you're getting less nutrition from every egg, even if it looks fine on the outside. Here's the fix. Always store your eggs in their original carton on a middle or lower shelf near the back of the refrigerator. Why? Because this is where the temperature is most stable. The carton also prevents light and odors from other foods from affecting the eggs. And it keeps the expiration date visible, so you're never guessing. One small shift in where you place your eggs can extend their freshness by 2 to 3 weeks and drastically reduce your risk of foodborne illness. Now, storing them right is one thing, but what about washing them before putting them in the fridge? It might seem like a smart move, but it could be setting you up for serious trouble. Number 4, the mistake that strips away nature's protection. We all want our food to be clean, especially when it comes to eggs. So it makes perfect sense that many people, especially those who buy farm fresh or backyard eggs, feel the need to give them a quick rinse before placing them in the fridge. But here's something that might surprise you. Washing eggs before storing them can make them more dangerous to eat. Let me explain why. When a hen lays an egg, she coats it with a natural invisible layer called the bloom or cuticle. This protective layer seals the pores on the eggshell, over 17,000 of them, and acts like a shield, keeping bacteria out and moisture in. It's nature's way of protecting that fragile cargo inside. Now, when you wash eggs at home under tap water, especially cold water, you're not just cleaning the dirt. You're stripping away that protective bloom. And unless you're recoating it the way commercial egg processors do with food-grade mineral oil, you're leaving the egg completely exposed to bacterial invasion. Here's where it gets worse. If the water is colder than the egg, it can create a vacuum effect, pulling bacteria through the shell and straight into the egg. And once it's inside, no amount of rinsing will fix that. A USDA Agricultural Research Service study tested over 5,000 eggs and found that those washed before storage had a 35% higher rate of bacterial penetration, especially when stored at room temperature or in fluctuating fridge conditions. Among the most common invaders, Salmonella enteritis, the same bacteria that cause severe gastrointestinal illness, and in older adults can lead to dehydration, hospitalization, or even secondary infections in the blood or brain. I remember a patient of mine, Mrs. Jeanette Taylor, 73 years old, is a proud backyard chicken keeper in North Carolina. She would wash each egg with cold water and a bit of vinegar before placing it in a bowl on the counter. She thought she was doing the safe thing. But one morning after eating a poached egg from her flock, she began to feel dizzy and nauseous. By that evening, she was in the ER with a confirmed case of salmonella. It took her 3 weeks to fully recover, and she still tells me, "Doc, I wish someone had told me not to wash them like that." So what's the right way? If your eggs are dirty, gently brush them off with a dry cloth or fine sandpaper. Only wash them right before cooking, and when you do, use water that's at least 20 degrees warmer than the egg itself. This prevents suction and minimizes risk. And remember, store them in their original carton, on a stable cold shelf in the fridge, not in the door. Now, I want to pause for just a moment and ask you something. Have you ever washed your eggs before putting them in the fridge? Have you or someone you love ever gotten sick from what seemed like a harmless egg? I'd love to hear your experience. Please share your thoughts in the comments, not just your questions, but your stories. Because every comment helps another person. It reminds us that we're not alone in this, that we're learning, healing, and growing together. As a doctor, I've learned that healing isn't just about avoiding harm. It's about understanding what your body needs now in this stage of life. What once worked at 30 may not serve you at 70. And that's not a failure, it's just wisdom. Now, if washing eggs can remove a natural shield, imagine what happens when we eat eggs too often without giving our body time to reset. It's a mistake I see every week in my clinic, and one that may be silently pushing your blood sugar, cholesterol, and inflammation in the wrong direction. Number 5, the hidden danger of eating eggs every day without a break. For years we were told, eggs are healthy, eat them daily. And to be honest, that advice made sense for a while. Eggs are packed with protein, B vitamins, choline, and healthy fats. They've fed generations. But here's the truth that most people never hear, especially those over 60. Eating eggs every single day, without any rest days, may slowly overwhelm your body's ability to process them. Let me explain. Inside each egg, yolk is around 200 to 300 milligrams of cholesterol. That's not necessarily bad on its own. Cholesterol is essential for hormone production and brain health. But as we age, our liver's efficiency declines and our cholesterol-clearing receptors become less responsive. A landmark study from Harvard Medical School tracked over 127,000 people for 2 decades. It found that those who ate eggs daily, without breaks, had a 42% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to those who ate eggs just a few times a week. Why? Because of something called cholesterol receptor fatigue. Think of your liver as a cleaning crew. If eggs keep coming in every day, nonstop, the cleanup team gets overwhelmed. LDL cholesterol builds up, inflammation rises, and your cells become less sensitive to insulin. Even more concerning is the role of a compound called TMAO, trimethylamine oxide. When you eat egg yolks every day, your gut bacteria convert certain nutrients into TMAO, which has been linked to insulin resistance, arterial plaque buildup, and cognitive decline in older adults. But here's the good news. You don't have to stop eating eggs. You just need to practice egg cycling. This means giving your body at least 2 egg-free days per week. During these days, your liver and metabolic systems get a chance to reset. And studies show that just 2 break days can lower TMAO levels by up to 40% and improve insulin sensitivity by 25%. In my clinic, I've helped many seniors adopt this pattern. One of my patients, Richard, 67 years old, used to eat 2 fried eggs every morning, no exceptions. Over the years, his cholesterol slowly crept up, and he couldn't understand why his blood sugar started fluctuating. We adjusted his routine, eggs only on weekdays, and oatmeal or Greek yogurt on weekends. 3 months later, his numbers had improved across the board. The solution isn't about restriction, it's about rhythm. So I want to ask you this. How many eggs do you eat each week? Do you give your body a break, or is it the same breakfast every morning? Leave a comment and let's talk about it. You might inspire someone else to make a simple, healthy change. Now, if your daily egg habit can affect your liver and blood sugar, what about the tools you use to cook those eggs? You might be surprised to learn that the wrong spatula can quietly spike your cholesterol just by stirring. Number 6, the silent reaction between eggs and metal utensils. Sometimes it's not what you cook, it's what you cook with. We all have our favorite spatulas or frying pans, and for many of us, those tools have been around for years. But if you're still using metal utensils, especially aluminum or uncoated cast iron, to stir or flip your eggs, you may be creating a chemical reaction that silently damages your health. Let's break it down. Eggs, especially the whites, are rich in sulfur-containing proteins. When heated, these proteins can react with certain metals, like iron or aluminum, to form compounds such as hydrogen sulfide and iron sulfide. Now, while those names might sound harmless, their impact is not. These reactions create oxidized cholesterol compounds, which have been linked to arterial plaque formation, inflammation, and increased cardiovascular risk, especially in older adults. One study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that eggs cooked with aluminum utensils had 23% more oxidized cholesterol compounds than those cooked with wooden or silicone tools. And these compounds aren't just theoretical. Blood tests from people who consistently cooked with metal showed 15% higher levels of oxidized LDL, the very type of cholesterol that clogs arteries. But the story doesn't end there. These metal-triggered reactions also change the texture and appearance of your eggs. If you've ever noticed a greenish-gray ring in your scrambled eggs or a strange discoloration on your omelet, chances are iron sulfide is to blame. It's not just unappetizing. It's a visible sign of unwanted chemistry on your plate. And here's something many people don't realize. Even stainless steel, if not properly seasoned or used at high heat, can contribute to these reactions over time. So what should you use instead? The safest options are Silicone spatulas. They're heat-resistant, flexible, and non-reactive. Wooden utensils. Time-tested, gentle on cookware, and chemically neutral. High-quality plastic tools. BPA-free and safe when used at moderate heat. If you prefer metal cookware, that's okay. Just make sure it's well-seasoned cast iron or high-grade stainless steel, and that you don't stir with metal tools while the egg is cooking. Let it set, then flip with a silicone spatula. This change might sound small, but over time, it protects your arteries, your brain, and your energy levels. And remember, cooking is a daily habit. What you do every day matters far more than what you do once in a while. If you stir eggs with metal 6 days a week, that's 300 plus exposures a year, each one nudging your body in the wrong direction. Now, let me bring this back to something more personal. A few years ago, I had a patient named Beverly. She was 71, full of energy, but she couldn't understand why her cholesterol had climbed despite eating clean. When I asked how she cooked her eggs, she said, always in the same cast iron skillet, always with the same old metal spatula I've used since I got married. We changed just that one thing, swapped her utensil for a silicone one. 6 months later, her oxidized cholesterol levels had dropped by nearly 20%. No pills, no special diets, just smarter cooking. So here's my question to you. What do you use to stir your eggs? Take a peek in your drawer after this video and let me know in the comments. You might be surprised by what you find, and so might someone else reading your story. Now we've talked about what to cook with, but what if I told you the texture of your eggs, runny yolks, creamy whites, could be more than just a taste preference? It could be the reason some eggs carry dangerous bacteria, while others don't.